we tend to focus too much on doing the next new addition. When really, if you just stop doing the things that are hurting you most, that is going to lead you to move the ball downfield the most. So if a person was drinking, a glass of wine a night or two a week,
right,
like they're probably fine.
That wasn't us.
Yeah, that wasn't us. So for us, it's like you remove that thing and it's just like you just push the ball forward.
I mean, that is, folks, if you want to have just out of the gate the single biggest performance enhancement or hack, and I've done a lot of hacks, as the world knows, there is none bigger than that one. Today's show brought to you by Maui Nui, the healthiest red meat that you'll ever eat. You heard that right. 100% wild harvest and stress-free process delivers the highest protein to calorie ratio, up to 53% more than grass-fed beef. They're sugar-free peppered stick packs, 10 grams of protein, only 55 calories, loaded with essential nutrients, vitamins, and healthy fats. Incredibly clean tasting and unmatched tenderness. And check this out, because you might be thinking what I was thinking. No gamey taste, just savory and satisfying. It's a great snack for on the go, delivered directly to your door. Maui Nui is solving a critical environmental problem in the great state of Hawaii. Wild axis deer are invasive to Maui, overpopulated and damaging the ecosystem. Maui Nui helps manage this issue responsibly. Maui Nui Venison is offering the Forward listeners a limited collection of my favorite cuts and products, but supply is limited by the nature of their work, so don't wait. Head to MauiNuiVenison.com/WeDo. That's MauiNuiVenison.com/WeDo. Now I know what else you're thinking. How the hell do we spell that? MauiNui Venison.com/WeDo. MauiNuiVenison.com/WeDo. Also today brought to you by OneSkin. Dry skin, deep wrinkles, crippiness. These are just a few of the visible signs of aging, something today's sponsor OneSkin knows all about. Now, I'm not overly concerned with aesthetics, but I do want to keep my skin healthy as I get older. That's why I love their topical supplements. They actually help your skin feel and behave younger as you age. OS1 is scientifically proven to decrease lines and wrinkles, boost hydration, and help with the thinning skin that comes with age. Don't just take my word for it. They've got over 4,000 five-star reviews for their full line of face, body, sun, and travel size products. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. Get started today with 15% off using the code FORWARD at oneskin.co. That's 15% off over at oneskin.co with the code FORWARD. Michael, thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, I thought I would. We talked a little bit about rich roll. By the way, just to back up, right, for the audience. So we did a workout this morning. I think it was good for us.
It was good for us, yeah.
I think we're probably wired similarly. I'm a better person if I work out and suffer a little bit. And so thanks for that. But when we were working out, I don't remember how it came up. We started talking about Rich Roll. I know you've been on Rich's show probably a couple times.
One time
for now. Love Rich.
He's great.
I really admire what he's built. But I was listening to his show. I was just in Abu Dhabi, which is a whole nother experience. And I was flying back and I was listening to his show with the guy who wrote, and you told me his name earlier, the guy who wrote The Art of Not Giving a Fuck, or The Art of...
Mark Manson is his name.
Mark Manson, The Art of Zero Fucks Given or something.
Right.
And Rich had this, I don't know if it was almost like he was talking to himself, but he was, it resonated with me because he clearly does a lot of work and research before the shows. And I do too. I try to get into this and you frame it out. You got some specific questions and you find yourself in a lot of these questions that you want to ask, the answers to, because part of the research, you've listened to Michael Easter on Joe Rogan, Michael Easter on Rich Roll, and you've read the book. So you know the answer, right? So I asked the question. you start to give the answer that I've already heard. So I'm not even listening to you.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, and it's like insecurity meets anxiety meets, oh, fuck, I have to make this show great. And you're sitting here looking for the next thing. Like you're just talking. Mm-hmm. You're talking to the audience, but you're not talking to me.
Right.
And so,
and as I'm talking, you're going, okay, what's my next question?
Yeah. You're thinking about the next move.
Sure.
Which is silly. Right. So, and so anyways, he was talking about, and Rich is, you know, he's like on the Mount Rushmore of podcasters.
He's an OG. He's been doing that forever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh shit. Like, first of all, I thought I was the only one that did that. Secondly, that's dope that he's caught himself doing it. And thirdly, most importantly, it was cool. He brought it up and just acknowledged that. So anyways, I was like, I have that problem. So I'm going to fix that problem today.
So what did he do in the episode? He stopped and he just acknowledged it?
It was very conversational in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And he just acknowledged it. And I was like, I was in the lounge in Abu Dhabi, and I was like, wow, like that's a problem. If you're that guy that you think that's a problem, I think that's a problem. And so I was like, I know Michael's, I knew you were coming on because we had this plan for weeks. I'm like, I'm going to roll it like that and just like let the shit flow.
Yeah. Right. But there's probably a lesson there for everyone.
Everybody.
Because how many times have you just been having a conversation with someone and you ask them a question and they start answering and maybe you start to get a little bit bored and you start thinking about it and then you go, and then you pop back in and go, wait, where the hell was I? Where are we? What's happening? Right.
And it cuts across all parts of your life, right? The most important relationships in your life, right? Your wife or husband or spouse,
totally,
or partner or your children. And we as a couple catch ourselves like, remember I told you this last night. And, he or she or I would be like, what? I didn't. No, you didn't.
Yeah.
And then that leads it because it's, you get on this hamster wheel and it kind of.
See, my character flaw is that she says that, and then I try and go, oh yeah, and fill in the blanks. So it was like, right. I'm trying to catch myself. It doesn't work. She's like, oh, I smell.
So she'll say a couple more. She'll give you a few more clues.
No.
And then you can fill it in.
She will start to say, oh, I told you that. And then I go, oh yeah. And I'll start to, and I'm like, why am I saying this? Just say like, you don't remember, cause I'm like, we don't want people to feel bad. Like we weren't listening.
Right.
And maybe we were, but it's also, you can't remember everything. But I do think today there are probably more forces that push us in the way of being more inside our heads and being more distracted.
Yeah.
TV's on, your phone's pinging.
Yep.
There's, I think people have more complicated to-do lists now.
Yep.
I mean, think about the average job. It's like you have to answer emails. You have to do X. You have to do Y. You have to do Z. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the past, I think humans had a lot simpler agendas. It was, okay, we got to get some food.
Right.
We got to keep our kids alive.
Right.
Maybe we'll have some other kids at some point. That was it. And you could be more present and focused.
Boy, I think about that a lot, I mean, people, as a parent, you really think about, you think about technology and you think about, especially social media, you think about, and you hear people like, we're so fucked. Like this day and age, our kids are fucked. And I watched this documentary or read this article and we're just screwed. And I'm like, I mean, maybe it's just not ideal, but I don't know. I don't, if you gave me the choice of living today or living 150 years ago, I mean, I'm not going back 150 years.
That's just it.
Weird diseases, living to 45 or 50. Fuck that.
Yeah. I think that most problems that people face today are good problems in the grand scheme of time and space. Right. Yeah. It's like our problems are that we're so distracted because we have this entertainment device in our pocket. The
supercomputer.
The supercomputer.
As I tell my children.
The slot machine in our pocket, basically. But that's preferable to being hungry and having to go run down your food every single day.
I'm out on that. Yeah. And then you got, God forbid, I watch all these, I watched this American Primeval. Did you see this show on Netflix?
Dude, I need to watch that.
You need to watch that. Like it's Pete Berg did it.
It's like about Mormon settlers, right?
Well,
partially.
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't know that. Right. I just, Netflix was promoting it and I love stuff like that. And of course that's kind of the rage right now, the Western thing. And I like Pete Berg's work. I was like, I'm gonna check this out. A buddy of mine said it was good. I did not know like the whole, and I don't know how much it's based on truth, but the Mormon thing, the Brigham Young thing. I mean, Brigham Young does not come off like a decent dude in this series. And just as a disclaimer, like anybody thinking about watching it, if you have a problem with violence, it's incredibly violent.
Really?
Very violent.
Wow. All right, I got to watch it. I've heard.
I can't wait.
Yeah. I've heard that there are some historical inaccuracies, but I'm interested in it because so I'm from Utah. So all of my
then you should watch it.
Were the people who walked across the plains into what is now Utah. It was then Mexico at the time and settled all that area. So,
So you grew up Mormon or not?
No.
No.
Most of my family is Mormon. So my mom, she was I wouldn't say black sheep of the family, but I think when she was 18, she moved away from Utah, stopped the Mormon thing, moved to Hawaii.
Left the church.
Yeah, left the church.
Okay.
Lived in Hawaii. This was, I think, 1968. And she was dating some guy who was in a Vietnam War protest group. And the FBI was basically trying to get this guy. So the FBI was tailing my mom for like weeks and weeks.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And at one point, so they would hang out in front of her house in their car, just parked. And she would walk to the store. It was this like 2-3 mile walk. And she'd get her groceries and she'd walk back. And finally, one day she just went up to the window of the car and just you know, I'm going to the store. Would you just give me a ride? And they just go, yeah, get in, you know.
Come on.
Yeah, it's great.
All because of the guy she was
dating. Yeah.
And nothing to see here.
Nothing
other than some political view or.
Yeah, he was just protesting the war. Yeah.
And no Mormon connect, because there's deep Mormon ties in Hawaii.
Right. It's because the Mormons sent missionaries there.
Yeah, right.
Back in the day.
I mean, I watched, who did BYU play in their bowl game? But I mean, like half the team is Hawaiian.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my wife was, not that she watches many bowl games with me, but I was like, you know why half this team is Hawaiian, right? She's like, no. I'm like, because there's this strong presence of the Mormon church. I went to, it's funny, my son, we went to a basketball game in Utah recently. It's in Salt Lake, the Nuggets and the Jazz. He loves the Nuggets. We love the Nuggets. And so we went to the Nuggets and the Jazz. And
nice.
And I was like, there's a lot of Mormons in the state. So I'm trying to explain this. And I was like, yeah. And then, like when you're 18, you're supposed to go on a mission somewhere around the world. They send you and you got to go for, I don't know, like 2 years.
2 years. Yeah. 2 years.
And my son is 15. He's like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, you got to go and you have to learn the language and you have to get dressed up every day and walk around door to door.
In the suit.
And a 15-year-old boy from Texas is like, wait, what?
Yeah. My cousin went to Ghana. He got back like 3 years ago. So I would say half of my mom's family has continued to be Mormon. The other half is not. But that wing, one of my cousins went to Ghana and the other, who was a girl. Girls often don't go on missions, although they can. She went to Thailand and crazy experiences.
Yeah. Boy, how did we get down the Mormon rabbit hole?
I don't know, man.
You built this incredible. We're going to be done. That's as close that we were bordering on talking about controversial stuff.
Almost.
Is because before we hit record here, we were talking about stuff that we're not going to talk about on this show.
Yeah.
That I have talked about before, but somehow we got into this territory. But you built this. Well, back up. You got these two great books, right? Comfort Crisis and Scarcity Brain. I want to talk about both of them. I think you and I have spent more time. The one time we hung out together and worked out, we went for a ruck.
Yep.
We talked more about Scarcity Brain, but I do want to talk about Comfort Crisis. But then also you built this incredible newsletter and this kind of this family or this following called the 2%.
Yep.
Which first question, and I'm just genuinely curious, what is the inspiration behind the brand or the name of 2%?
Yeah. So the names comes from a stat that found 2% of people take the stairs when there's also an escalator available.
Okay.
2%.
Okay.
So to me, 100% of people know that if you take the stairs, you're going to get a better long-term return on your health, on your well-being. But 98% of people choose to do the easy thing that could actually hurt them in the long run when you think about how sick so many people are today. And so I find that to be a good metaphor for where we are as a society today, in the sense that we've engineered our world to be comfortable, easy, and that's great in the grand scheme of time and space, like we were just saying. But that comes with downsides. Mm-hmm. And so I think today, in order to be healthy, to improve your life, you often have to do things that are hard in the short term that give you a long-term return. Yeah. And so the stairs are just a metaphor for that. So that's why I named it the 2% newsletter.
Okay.
And started sending it. And yeah, I mean, when you start a newsletter, you start with like, hey mom, sign up for my newsletter.
Right.
Hey buddy from college, sign up for my newsletter. And then slowly it kind of, people
I'd be scared to death. I mean, I shouldn't say that because that's not that different than starting a podcast. Like, hey, download my show.
Totally.
You don't even have to listen. Just download it. Because a download means that they think that you listened. Very similar. I was, and I want to talk about the newsletter and because I'm an avid reader.
Right on.
I think I'm a subscriber, right? There's two tiers, right? So I'm in the cool tier. But I was curious about the 2% because I've talked a lot on this show about my time at a facility in Tennessee called Onsite.
Okay.
And it's, where complicated people like me get sent or
I'm not aware of it. What is it? Fill me in briefly.
Onsite is what is it? It's just it's intensive therapy.
Okay.
Perfect. Right. So if you a lot of people see a therapist, a lot of people will go once a week or once a month or twice a month, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And you can move the needle. Onsite was my first it is intensive therapy, right?
So you're living there effectively.
No, you are you're not leaving.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I was there for 5 days. Mm-hmm. People can, address anything they need to address in their life, whether it's, certain addictions, whether it's their marriage. Couples can go, right? Yeah. So, or just need a reset, right? And so, but my first introduction there was 5 days, and obviously you stay on site. And they take all your devices. So you're really focused, right? And it's long days and 10-hour days. Mm-hmm. And I chose to do one-on-one the whole time. Now there are also groups. I didn't think the group thing was for me. Was started by a guy named Miles, who's lovely.
Okay.
I did my work with a gentleman named Mark Pemsler. But I remember when I was leaving, Miles stopped me and he talked to me about 2%. And I thought, what is he talking about? So the idea of 2% is all they're looking for is when people come to Onsite, is that they just make a 2% improvement, right? And if you're watching the show, you see 2% of a circle is not very, you look at it and you're like, what?
Right.
It didn't really work, right? But the thought that Miles explained to me was that as this 2% goes, as you continue to grow and move forward, right, the 2% start ripples. That gap and that of improvement starts to get bigger, right? Yeah. It's still 2%, but there's more there.
It ripples out.
Yeah. And so I was like, wow, that's.
So to me, it's like, if you can get someone, and I get messages from people who are like, man, because of the 2% newsletter, it started with this idea of the stairs and the escalator. And I literally cannot take the escalator anymore now that you've pointed this out. Because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Yeah. Right? And then it's like, okay, I started taking the stairs. And then that became, okay, this is just a part of who I am.
Right.
I take the damn stairs. And then the question becomes, okay, well, where else can I apply this in my life? And you start to see those ripple effects just go out.
Right.
And, people will think
it's not dissimilar.
Yeah. It just, things start moving. Things start changing. I think like a mindset shift happens. And it happens usually with one thing. And then that one thing leads to another, and that thing leads to even more, and it just spreads.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's what
I feel like everyone could probably benefit from that place on site.
Yeah. And I was terrified to go. I'm sure the regular audience of the show is like, oh fuck, he's going to talk about on-site again. He always talks about it, but I love it. And I was terrified to go, as most people are. Right.
Of course.
And then the little thing like, oh my God, I'm not going to have a phone for 5 days. It's the greatest gift ever. And then I've just now I work pretty much primarily with Mark, who I referenced. And it's just, in fact, the last time I was with Mark was last summer. And we did it in Vegas.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
good. That town needs some therapy.
Well, I know. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about doing this type of work in Las Vegas, but I rented this goofy Airbnb way outside of, or not way, but certainly not on the strip. And it was dope. Like it was 110 degrees outside. I would get up every morning and start my bike ride in the dark. Yeah. It was already hot. Yeah, I'm like, fuck this. Anyhow, it's just like this, but you built this huge thing, right? And
yeah, it's been fun, man. Like when you start a newsletter, it's like, you have no idea what's going to happen.
You do, but then you do have an idea how it's going, right?
Yeah. And then it starts to grow and you see more people, I think that we can get captured by numbers.
Yeah.
How many subscribers do I have?
Okay.
How many have moved into the member phase of paying for all the content? Mm-hmm. What's my open rate? What's all these fucking numbers, right? But I think the reality is, at the end of the day, what makes you keep doing it is you get the email from, the lady who goes, I started reading this. I read this thing that you wrote 3 months ago and I started doing it. And whatever it is, I lost 20 pounds. Mm-hmm. It helped me figure something out that was happening with my kid or whatever it might be. And you're like, that is why you write the damn thing 3 times a week. Yeah. That's the magic.
But you'll continue to write books.
Yep. I'm doing another one.
Okay. Yeah.
I have this.
You've had there's only 2 books.
There's 2.
Right.
So this will be the third one.
Scarcity Brain. Working on number 3.
Mm-hmm. So the reason I was asking you about the shoes, the Nordas, is because this one, end of March, I'm doing it's about 800 to 900 mile hike through southern Utah. So it'll take about 45 days, and I'm just getting ready for that psychologically. So when you mentioned I didn't have my phone for 5 days and it was the greatest gift, like when I hear that, I'm like, oh yeah, that's gonna be so good.
You're not going to take a phone?
Well, I'll have a phone, but serviceless. Yeah. It's mostly just for maps, for SOS, that sort of thing. Like you hit some occasional towns along the way. Surely when you get high enough up in altitude, every now and then you get a bar or 2, but it'll be mostly disconnected.
Starlink.
Yeah. Yeah. See,
and if you believe what you saw in that ad last night in the the Super Bowl, mm-hmm. Wow. That is the future, right? We're not going to have these towers around. That Starlink is going to,
change everything.
Yeah. And T-Mobile told you last hour you were flying here, which that's amazing.
Turned out to be a gift.
Yeah. So hang on, back up. 800-mile hike.
Yeah. It's a trail.
And it's like a trail. It's
not a trail. So the name of it is
you're not just going to start going one direction. I mean,
it's a route.
Okay.
So a better way to think about it is a route.
You can download some route.
Yes. So if you think of a trail, it's like, it's well worn. If I'm doing a hike, say it's the Appalachian Trail. Yep. You know exactly where you need to go. Right. You just go, okay, this place is worn. I walk on this thing. It's 2,000 miles, but there's not as much thought that goes behind that. Mm-mm. Whereas this is more of a route. And so you're having to find a lot of your own way. You're having to navigate. You're having to it's kind of like a loose set of directions of, go this way, and then whatever it is, 800-900 miles later, you start in Arches National Park, weave down through Utah. You end up going through the Grand Canyon. You end in Zion National Park.
Wow.
Yeah, it should be interesting. So that'll be like the through line.
And you do that alone?
I'm going to do it with one of my buddies whose name is Matt Sherman. He's one of my favorite humans.
I would hope that, I don't know. I would never do that. But if I ever had to do that, I would definitely pick one of my favorite humans.
You got to be selective. Yeah. So Matt's a fascinating dude because he's one of the longest serving people in the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, but he was a diplomat. So the government would effectively send him out to meet with warlords, to be on the ground with units and come back and report to the generals and be like, hey, here's what I'm seeing. Here's how I'm thinking about this. And then they could build out a strategy. But he's like, I describe him and people.
He tells you everything?
Tells me most things. Yeah. About it.
I mean, you would have to, you get 20 days into this thing. You're like, come on, man, give it up.
Give it up.
Those stories. I mean,
he's told me some stories. Yeah.
I'm not asking you to tell us the stories, but his stories would be insane.
Oh, totally insane. Yeah. I mean, I remember when I did the Go Ruck did a 50-mile ruck in Normandy
last
for the
summer.
80th anniversary.
They tried to get you
all
your cronies, Jason and Atia. And I couldn't do it. But Jocko was there, right? Or was supposed to be there.
Who's the guy he partners with? Leif?
Yeah.
He was there.
But that's my son's birthday. So
that's a good reason. Anyways, Matt was, I don't know why I brought that up. Matt was there with me and we had this car ride that was 3 hours. And I was, we get in the car and I'm like, so what was it like working with Petraeus, the general?
Right.
3 hours later, I know all these crazy details about Petraeus, his phase of the war, all these crazy, it was just like, oh my God.
He's cool with Petraeus?
Yeah. Yeah. He's pretty much cool with everyone. Matt's superpower. So Matt, I would say his superpower is that he is one of the most likable people ever. Okay. He's one of those guys.
He's a diplomat, so that's a good start.
Exactly. That's exactly why they used him as a diplomat.
Right.
He's one of those guys.
Roll up and be just the prick, and the other side's like, I'm not tired. I hate this guy already. Yeah.
And a great case study from that trip is, so we're in the town where Omaha Beach is. There's it's just a swarm of people there for the 80th anniversary, just packed. We go to this restaurant. There's not many restaurants in town. We have 10 people with us and we need reservations for 7 nights. So this is impossible. This is a ridiculous request. Yeah. We go in, there's some people ahead of us who just wanted to sit down for lunch. And this guy who owns the restaurant, he's classically just French, no.
C'est pas possible.
Yeah. No.
C'est pas possible.
Yeah,
it's not possible.
Exactly. So he does that. Matt goes up to talk to him. Send in Matt, see what happens. The guy, Matt and him interact. The guy's just, within 30 seconds, the dude's smiling. Within a minute, shaking hands. Within 2 minutes, so just, Matt comes back 2 minutes later and goes, yeah, I got us reservations for every single night for 10 people. And then he looks over at me, he goes, by the way, that guy would die for me now.
That's a special skill. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's that's like an energy, right?
Oh yeah. It's great.
Some people just get to yes quickly. All right. So you're taking this dude, and obviously you're carrying, I'm guessing you
carry all your stuff.
Do you get replenished along the way?
We'll have, there's a couple towns you can hit. We're going to cache some stuff in the desert. So I'll drive out a week before and, you put your food or whatever you need in Home Depot buckets, you seal them and you hide them in the desert and then you come upon them and then you have your resupply. Then you got to go get the buckets when you're done. So should be interesting. Water is the issue though. Because
there's no water?
Because you're in the damn desert, right? And so sometimes you have to do these really long water carries. You might have information from people who have done it before who go, okay, at this stretch, there's this spring or whatever that has water. But you go there and it's dry.
It's a seasonal spring.
Yeah.
And you're in the wrong season.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting.
And that's what the third book is about.
Yeah, that'll be kind of the overarching narrative.
Could be. I wonder, because Arch is in late March. You said you could be. Maybe it starts to warm up there by then.
It'll be cold early.
Yeah, I would think it'd be cold early. All our time in Aspen, that's kind of the time of year where people would start to go to Moab and Fruta and places near Arches. And if you were just dying to go for a mountain bike ride, you could drive a couple hours and be there.
Yeah.
But it's especially at night. It's going to be chilly.
Yeah, it'll be chilly at night. We were out there, that sort of area, a little more south in November, and it was just kind of getting ready, just like, all right, a little dry run. And it was like 10 overnight. It was just like, oh God.
10 degrees?
Yeah, 10 degrees overnight.
Dude.
Yeah, it's cold.
Your wife must be, I don't know. I mean, that's be funny if your wife was like, this is amazing. He's gone for 2 months.
I think she, there's things about it she likes. There's things about it she doesn't like. It's like, oh yeah, this is great. I can watch whatever the hell I want on TV. I can just cook all my own food. Yeah. I can, but then, now I have to deal with the dogs alone. Anything that comes up, I can't help with it. So it's, a little bit of,
and so is this just a continuation of discomfort, this theme of discomfort? Yeah,
I think it's like, here's the thing is like when I talk to
part of Comfort Crisis was this trip to Alaska, which by the way, I read, in reading that chapter again last night, you're describing, and surely you followed this, you're describing this flight to wherever you have to go, and your guide is like, oh, don't, the guide says, hey, by the way, these planes crash all the time, but I got us a good guy. Yeah. And then this plane, you probably saw this yesterday or the day before, this
10 people,
crazy dead. And just because they're flying, I mean, terrible conditions or certainly unpredictable conditions, equipment, probably
small planes.
Yeah. Small, just kind of sit out there maintenance wise. And then the human factor, right? Yeah. And so 10 people died. It was crazy because I read that part yesterday and I'm watching the news last night and I'm seeing this on the news. I'm like, whoa, that's no shit. Yeah. But that has nothing to do with, obviously somebody was uncomfortable for about 60 seconds. But this idea of discomfort or getting out of our comfort zone, I'm just so curious about, right? And I guess this is a continuation of that.
Yeah, I think this book, so the Comfort Crisis really got into how, as the world has become more comfortable in a lot of ways. Yep. It's really impacted.
We live in 2025.
Yes, exactly. How we've lost a lot of the things that keep us physically healthy. So I go back to the 2% stat, right? It's like in the past, to get anywhere, you had to walk, you had to carry stuff. You had to go out and hunt for your food. You had to do you're always physically active. You were exposed to the elements. There were all these forms of discomfort that humans evolved to face. And I think that those really shaped us. And then now we've really removed those. And I think we see a lot of consequences. So this book looks at the same phenomenon, but I would say more applied to mental health and mindset and just even what we think we can achieve in a way, possibilities.
Yeah. Really. Resetting sort of the, and cause I'm curious and we can compare it to certain things or bring up certain examples, and I am curious about, I also want to make sure the audience knows, we're not looking for misery.
Right.
That's a question.
Yeah.
That wasn't a question. Yeah. That was my question. Cause sometimes I read these things and I'm like, and let me just use an example for me, cold plunges.
I'm glad we're on this topic.
Yeah. I have no idea what you're going to say, but this is all the rage.
Yes.
And
they are all the rage.
And the whether it's heat exposure or exposure to cold, those are both kind of the rage. And I've tried the cold exposure, right? The cold plunge. And there's just something. And I think I'm tough. Just about anything else. I don't give a shit. I will do it. I will try it. I will suffer through it. There's something about putting me in, and I'm embarrassed to tell you what temperature number I start to get uncomfortable. I like nauseous, right? So that then I'm now no longer in a comfort crisis. I'm miserable.
Right.
So there is a difference. That was my question, is there is a difference.
So I think big picture, the way I think about this is if you think about how a boxer improves, you don't improve by getting punched in the face. You don't stick your jaw out and say, hey, hit me in the face. That'll make me a better boxer. But what does happen is that on the path to becoming a better boxer, you're going to get punched in the face every now and then. So there's a difference between just actively seeking discomfort for the sake of it and doing things that are inherently uncomfortable or going to have uncomfortable moments that are going to improve your life in the long haul. Now to bring it back to cold plunges, I'm with you. Not a huge fan personally.
But that's a personal preference.
It's a personal preference.
This isn't based on science or some other data you've looked at. Or
here's my thinking. As I used to just think they're stupid. I'm like, why the hell are people doing these? Right? Because you look at the literature and it's like, it's not really that strong. But
the people who do it swear by it.
The people who do it swear by it. And there's a lot of those people.
There are.
So my takeaway from that is, if you do this thing and you think it helps you, great, keep doing it.
Right.
But if you do it and you're miserable, like I am too, you don't have to do it. So for me, I personally think, like, yeah, it makes sense to expose yourself to different temperatures. Makes sense to occasionally be hot. Makes sense to occasionally be cold. But me personally, I would rather just go out on a cold day and go for a run, go for a hike. I'm like, yeah, I got cold along the way, rather than filling my bathtub with ice and, shivering there inside. Because I think on the path too, when you're outside and it's cold, you're also getting a lot of other stuff, right? You're active, you're moving around. So I'm like, all right, I'm getting exercise. You're also outdoors. Right. It's like, all right, I'm getting some outdoor exposure. So you're hitting a lot of different boxes.
If you're hiking, you're having to, think about where you step.
Totally. Yeah.
You had that in.
That's an interesting thing. I think that's really changed. Your newsletter.
I read it last. It was something you wrote something about. You were out on a trail run and just talking about the foot and mobility and stability out there. And lastly, today's show brought to you by Ketone IQ. There is not a day that goes by that I do not consume Ketone IQ. I'm just being really honest with you. It is. It's just part of my regimen before I work out. I get a lot of questions. How do you use it? When's best? I typically take a shot of Ketone IQ about 30 minutes before my workout. I get other questions about whether or not you should be fasted. I am typically fasted in the sense that I have not eaten, but I would have had 2 cups of coffee in the morning with a little bit of sugar in the raw. I'm being really honest. A little bit of sugar in the raw and a touch of half and half, but more or less fasted. And that's when I hammer my Ketone IQ shot. Here's the thing. It delivers clean fuel that also crosses the blood-brain barrier, supplying your brain and body sustained energy, focus, and sharpness, putting you in flow. So what does that mean? That means it doesn't have to be just 30 minutes before your workout. I don't know. If you're sitting at the desk all day long, feeling a little sluggish, try it. Hammer a shot of Ketone IQ. Let us know how it works. 30% off your first subscription order when you use the link ketone.com/forward. That's ketone.com/forward.
Outdoor exercise, I think, really changes this. So one thing is that big picture is that exercise is something we invented, right? Like moving just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
Moving just for the sake of it never fucking made sense ever. Because you didn't have enough food. You wanted to save energy. Like, no one ever exercised.
Right.
But once we took movement out of our lives, we're like, oh, well, looks like people are getting kind of sick if they don't move around enough. So what do? Well, I guess we just have to move for the sake of it. It's totally fine. But a lot of exercise today happens totally indoors. And I do think that you lose something when your exercise is only indoors because, what you just brought up, it's like if I'm out on a trail, I'm having to not only work my endurance, but I'm having to go, okay, well, what about foot placement?
Right.
I'm out in nature. I'm having to deal with the elements.
Yep.
I'm having to pace myself differently because of the pitch of a hill. There's all these different things that happen that I think you don't necessarily get only exercising indoors. So there's this dude at, I'm trying to remember what university he's at. I think he's at USC. And he thinks that exercising outdoors more because of the sort of mental challenge that comes along with that as well could be good for people over the long run, for your brain as we age.
I've joke about it all the time and on our cycling show, like I love, but so many people, a lot of people ride indoors now.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have no choice because it's cold in the winter but there are a lot of others that just are scared of cars and just the risk of that they choose to ride primarily Zwift indoors, or if they're not that serious, they'll ride Peloton or something. And I joke, because I'm just this outdoor kitty, right? I'm not an indoor kitty. I love being, even today we worked out. I was like, God, it's not that cold. It's not very cold outside. I feel like we should go for a ruck or a run or mix it up or something.
Yeah.
It just better to be outside.
What's your take on cars in cycling? Has that changed over time? Is it more dangerous?
Yeah, I think it has changed. Yeah. And, it's funny. I did, Malcolm Gladwell did a piece a bit on this and called me about it. And so we recorded, I think it was on his, but anyways, I think so. I mean, it's distracted driving.
Yeah.
Is what it is. I mean, it's, you know,
even if you,
and I've, you know, I've been hit by a couple of cars, but not from distracted drivers. You get scared when you're out riding if somebody comes close to you. But yeah, I think it's more and more common. There's ways around it, right? To I think safeguard for that. I think, and for anybody who wants tips on this.
Yeah.
Look, I'll ride on if I'm out. First of all, I ride mostly on my gravel bike, so I can ride on anything. Mm-hmm. If I'm on a road and I'm freaked out, and I'm on a gravel bike, which can, as I said, pretty much ride over anything. If there's a sidewalk there, I'm riding on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Or if I see what is a little path, I'll just ride on a little dirt path. Mm-hmm. I think one thing I always I tend to avoid are straight roads. I think anytime the road is straight, long and straight, mm-hmm. people get distracted.
Yeah. Right.
You put people on a twisty, turny road, switchback. It doesn't even have to be switchbacks, but a very technical road.
Yeah.
They tend to get less distracted because they have to focus on driving. They have to turn. They have to manage mm-hmm. what they're up to. Those long straight roads I avoid like the plague. Mm-hmm. But you know, like when I ride here in Austin, which when I moved here in 1989, I mean, you could, where we are today, anywhere west of here was like it was already starting to be chill. Mm-hmm. It's just not like that anymore. So and we've had things that have come along and helped the average cyclist to avoid traffic, primarily Strava and the heat map on Strava. And for those who haven't checked it out, you should, because you see the routes that other cyclists are using, right? And they are using the routes that have less traffic and that they feel safer on.
Right.
And then of course, and this was Malcolm's, the conversation with him is once we get to this point of self-driving cars, which, you know, it's whether we ever get there. I mean, those cars will not hit a cyclist.
Right.
In a perfect world.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I don't, it scares me.
Even if you're not on your cell phone now, cars have Apple Play. I mean, you basically just put the cell phone interface right in the screen. So you're like, I'm not on my cell phone, but you're
CarPlay.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, that's great. But it's also distracting.
Right. Yeah. Well,
I've noticed it myself. I'll be driving and I'm like, well, I'm not on my phone, but I'm going, I need to find this song and on that screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know. And we're all guilty of that. Yeah. I don't ride as much. You know what? The best solution to all this is to ride the mountain bike. Like people, in the summertime when we're in Colorado, I bet I ride, if I'm riding a bicycle, I bet 95% of it's on a mountain bike.
Do you go to Aspen in the summers?
All summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Similar to the same deal with the trail running too, right? It's like probably a lot more mentally engaging.
Oh yeah. Because not that I do a lot of trail running. I have run those trails, but I haven't, my run game is off.
Yeah.
But be fun to get it back. I had a question about, cause this has also come up in recent, not as recent as this plane crash in Alaska, but I guess in the last 6 months, because when we did this ruck a year plus ago, we talked about Syria and we talked about captagon.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I was so fascinated by this. And of course, this was post October 7th. You told me on the ruck that I'll let you explain what captagon is, that they had in these Hamas fighters that had come across that they had killed, they found captagon on them. Mm-hmm. And that Syria had basically become this narco state. And of course, in the last I don't know, 3 to 6 months. I can't remember exactly. Assad was kicked out and overthrown. And I'm curious how the narco state of Syria is doing. But first, tell us about captagon.
Captagon, right? You can think about it as a low-grade meth. So what happened is after Syria falls and Assad takes over, they effectively started using all the pharmaceutical plants in the country to manufacture these captagon pills. And they just started sending them out into all of the entire world. But it's especially popular in the Middle East. Has some places in Europe too, but mainly in the Middle East. And there are like billions of pills, like billions and billions of pills that are getting sent out. I mean, they'll find cargo containers that have, 100 million pills or whatever it might be.
Because they're little.
Because they're little.
Yeah.
And they find all kinds of crazy ways of hiding them. Like,
of course. Well, that's
they
right.
put it in furniture, right? It's like, oh, we're just transporting furniture, but then you break the furniture open and there's like thousands and thousands of pills. Right. So yeah, Syria basically turned into a narco state. All their funding was coming from Captagon. They're sending it out to everywhere in the Middle East. It will be interesting to see what happens with that. Now that
I was just when I saw that went down, because I'll never forget you telling me about this. I had a lot of thoughts about Captagon because I was like, would you ever try that? Like that was you have to ask yourself, like if you're over.
Would I try that?
You did?
No, I didn't try it. But you ask yourself, of course.
Yeah, I mean, because you went to Iraq.
Yeah, I went to Baghdad.
You went to Baghdad to meet the.
I met a bunch of people in there. I met, a lot of people. I met the head of drug enforcement for Baghdad. So I went to his, they have this outpost on the outskirts of Baghdad. Went there, met with his crew. They have all these, the biggest drug dealers in Baghdad are all there. And
in jail.
Okay. Yeah. In cells. So they have, there's these cells are packed. It's crazy.
And you're alone on this trip?
I'm alone. I have a handler.
Okay. Yep. You talk about the handler in the book, but you flew over there alone.
Yeah, flew over
which
there
I think
alone.
just changes the whole
You have to
vibe.
do different things. You definitely have to do different things. If you think about like a soldier going to Iraq, you're on a base, you're with a unit, you're armed, you have a certain presence based on what you're wearing, but I'm just going over there, me like this. And so you have to plan for certain things and behave in a certain way. It's just the stakes get raised a little bit. So I met with that guy. I met with the head of psychiatry in Iraq, who had really interesting thoughts just about addiction generally. I would say he's like, look, so part of the book, it looks at how we've often framed addiction as this brain disease. Right? It's like your chemicals are not right in your brain. But this guy argues, and I think a lot more people are coming around to this in the US, that it's a behavioral thing in the sense that people do behaviors that hurt them because they give them a short-term benefit, right? If you're like an Iraqi and you've lived through the war and your life is hell, it's like, well, this pill, it makes your life better for a while. So why the hell wouldn't you do that? Right. But of course, over the long run, it starts to make your life even worse. So that's the story of addiction to me. And it's like, why is it that certain people can drink and others shouldn't drink? Why is it? I live in Las Vegas. I can go play a slot machine and put in whatever, $50. And it's like, okay, that was fun. Whatever.
Walk away.
And then there's people who are, basically have melded into the thing because they're there for so long. And I think it's just like people find their thing that gives them relief, escape, and eventually they just keep chasing that and chasing that and chasing that. And then the benefits just disappear. But they don't know how to find a way out. Right. Because this thing has always worked. Right. And if maybe it's going to work again.
I would think Captagon would be pretty, if it's not that I know what meth is like, but I would think it goes south pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Or is this more, let me just, because I actually still don't understand it, right? Because the meth piece I can understand, like that seems like is pretty much as extreme as you could get. But then you walk it back, right? Then you have cocaine, and then you have Molly, and then you have psilocybin. How far back are we walking this thing? Is because if it was like MDMA or Molly, well, then you can imagine these people probably think, well, shit, life is great. Right. I could do this for forever.
Yeah.
Right. Which would not work. But, or is this more to the extreme of like people are getting fucked up real fast, real deep?
I think it's less extreme than meth for sure, but it's the same. It's basically the same phenomenon, and feel not as intense of a feeling, but so I think that because of that, probably people don't go off the edge quite as quick. Like people get hooked on meth, it's like a
right quickly.
This it's maybe like a little.
And what is it? Why is it such a like for war or for like, why are they, I mean, by the way, this isn't new. I mean, it's pretty well, there's been books written about, the Nazis and their use of amphetamines. And I mean, it's not dissimilar to that. This is more extreme, but it's the same idea, right? So I guess these guys are going in, like these Hamas guys, they give them this thing and they're like, fuck it, let's go do this. Like, whereas the day before they were having, Diet Coke or something, they're like, I don't know, it's not such a great idea. Or that's they're nervous. So it brings down your inhibitions, probably increases your focus, allows you to stay awake, not as tired. So if you think about it in the context of, if I'm going to war, that sounds like a pretty good state to be in, right? Not as fearful. I can focus more. I can stay up longer because this mission I'm on might take an entire day, which is exactly why the Nazis use. I mean, there's a lot of different soldiers used amphetamines in World War II. And what Vietnam. Was it? Blitzkrieg? It was a book, Blitzkrieg.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep. Yeah. I've heard people talk about that book.
I mean, all drugs, I would say for most of the time, people use substances as tools.
Right.
So alcohol is a good example. Yep. So scientists think that basically why we're attracted to alcohol is, in the past, it's like we never had enough food. You had to go out and find it. And what would happen is fruit would fall from trees. It would begin to rot and it would give off this smell. Right. So we'd smell it. Oh, we can smell that. The food is over there. And we'd go there and we'd eat that food. It had been fermenting. You get like this low level amount of alcohol right from that. And that would also kill some of the parasites and stuff on the fruit. So we got this like low level of it in the past, and
we're going way back.
Okay, I mean, I'm talking like thousands and thousands.
First,
I
was framing up like, like I don't know, like the
we're talking like
Prohibition,
100,000 years ago.
Okay, yeah, I'm like, then all of a sudden I was like, wait, I think he's talking about caveman shit.
We're talking about caveman shit.
Okay, good. Yep. All right, yeah, so. So I've never heard that.
Yeah. And same with like,
and after a while, the caveman's like, well, I feel kind of good right here.
Yeah.
And then
but then today we have the technology to basically take that psychoactive substance and just concentrate it.
Of course.
So now we can create, it used to be the fruit might have 2-3% alcohol. Now it's like we got Jack Daniels, we got whatever it might be.
Yeah. Whatever.
Same with cocaine. So cocaine comes from coca leaves. Yep. Right? Have you ever been to South America, like Peru or Bolivia?
No.
So still today, people chew coca leaves because it helps with altitude sickness. It's kind of like having a cup of coffee, but it helps with altitude sickness as well. But then we figured out,
legally they do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I lived in Bolivia for a while and you chew it.
Okay.
I mean, it's just, it's like having a cup of coffee. But then we figure out, we can like take this good part of it and distill it down into just super concentrated. And then that just ramps up those effects like crazy.
I know I watched this documentary, I watch a lot of documentaries, but it was on Netflix about this plane, another plane crash. Why do these keep...
Got a plane crash thing.
God. But it was a plane crash. This Colombian, they lost these kids. The kids ran away in the Colombian Amazon.
Yeah.
It's a decent documentary. But the guys, I mean, obviously the Colombians, their special forces were looking for them, couldn't find them. And then the local indigenous people went out to look for them. And they showed them a lot, chewing coca leaves and they never found them. And then they were like, well, this isn't working. So they called in the ayahuasca. So that, anyways, they found them right after they did ayahuasca. But they would chew these coca leaves just like you're chewing on crushed ice or something, like no biggie.
Yeah, I mean, you go to like a market in Bolivia and it's just big piles of coca leaves. Yeah. And it's rather normal behavior there. Like it's not viewed, we hear cocaine, we go, oh my God. And over there, it's
this guy's off the rails.
It's just like coffee. Yeah.
And so, okay, go back to Syria. So we don't know what's going on. I mean, these pharmaceutical facilities are still, I mean, they didn't shut them down. I mean, who knows, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to ask. There's a lady named Caroline Rose is her name. And I can't remember who she's with. She's a researcher and she just studies this world. So she would know. I can shoot her an email. Yeah. It's crazy.
Well, let's talk about, because you touched on, you gave us a history lesson on the invention. How about that? Here's your takeaway, people.
There you go.
You thought Jack Daniels invented alcohol? No, it was a caveman.
Yeah.
Who found a rotting piece of fruit. We do, speaking of Aspen, we get that the bears will get a little tipsy at that time of year when the fruit has fallen, and they love that. They'll come into town and they'll just be like, what's up? You and I have actually, since we saw each other, I've decided to retire, and I told you this earlier, but I decided to retire from the drinking game. And of course, you've been sober now for
10 years.
10 years.
10 years, yeah.
And I sort of hesitated there because the word, for me at least, and I'm curious your thoughts, I've chosen, this is the way I describe it. I've chosen to take that out of my life.
Yeah.
Right. To eliminate that from my life. And you know, we can get into the whys and why nots if we want, but that's the way I look at it. Right.
Yeah.
This was never, I'll bring it all the way back to Onsite. This was never a theme for me at Onsite. This was never like, hey, this is a problem for me. And some of these issues that rear their head in my life are directly tied to that. Now, in hindsight, yes, but I didn't go there for that. But it was just another of these things. And I said, I think it's time for me to re-examine this relationship, my relationship with alcohol, and eliminate it.
Yeah.
And so, if somebody says to me, and I just caught myself saying it to you, hey, are you sober? It's always like, I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't drink anymore, and I'm glad. Did I go to, have I ever gone to an AA meeting? No. Could I tell you 4 of the 12 steps? No.
Right.
Did I decide for myself that I sort of wore out my welcome? Yeah.
Right.
And so how do you, and I didn't know, I mean, and going back and rereading the book last night, I was like, wow. Because I don't know you that well, but the little bit that I do, I'm like, I can't imagine that guy living the life that I read about.
Yeah.
Which is, by the way, is cool.
Yeah. I would say it's been a good thing for me.
Yeah. I would.
And everyone around me. I think you're onto something with the idea of the word sober. I use it because it's easy.
Yep.
But I think that there becomes there can become an identity thing in that.
Right.
And I've found that you can get pinned as like the sober guy. And I don't want it to become part of my identity.
Right. I'm with you.
I don't drink.
Yep.
If someone thought they had a problem and they wanted to talk to me about how I got out of mine, I will do that 10 times out of 10.
Yep.
But I don't want everything I do to revolve around this thing I don't do anymore.
Yeah. Right.
I'd rather focus on what am I doing now? And I think that can, I mean, obviously a lot of sobriety programs, they've saved a lot of lives. They've done a lot, but it can, I do worry sometimes that people, once they stop the thing, their life becomes all about how I stopped the thing. And that very well might be good for the first little while. Like some people might have to focus entirely on the fact that they stopped the thing, but eventually,
and that might be the only thing that helped them stop the thing.
Right. Exactly. But eventually for me, I found that it's, it's just something I don't do anymore.
And you just stopped, or you got a little help with stopping?
I got help with stopping.
Okay.
I talked to people who'd stopped. My mom is,
but not went away, or you don't have to say, but
no, I didn't go to rehab or anything.
Right. But that means, I mean, obviously you talked to it, but just stop. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I had tried to stop a bunch of times. I knew I had a problem.
I mean, you say in the book, which the it's common, right? Just the side effects of stopping, the sweats, the headaches, the anxiety. So I just didn't know how that actually played out.
Yeah.
But
it's definitely tough. It's definitely tough. But I will say that when I stopped, I was like, okay,
right,
we got to figure this out.
Right.
Like I'd messed around a bunch of times. I'd been like, oh, well, maybe I could do this thing to drink less.
Of course, dry January.
I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do like just dipshit schemes.
Right.
That never worked.
Of course.
Because I found if I had one, I was going to have far more than one.
Right.
Like I could never just have one. Favorite drink was always the next one. And when you drink like that, it can lead to problems in the long haul.
I was talking to somebody the other day and this came up and they said, it says something like, well, I'll drink now and then. I said, hey, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I said, but I didn't have a now and then.
Right.
If you got now and then, or however you want to define it or describe it, the every so often or occasionally, if you can run that play, really, truly, honestly, great.
Yes.
I am fucking proud of you, and that is dope and amazing. I couldn't run that play.
Yeah.
Right. And so I didn't have a now and then. So I'm looking at my hand going, sounds like it's just no.
Yeah. No is easy.
No is easy.
You don't have to worry about having 10 if you don't have one. Is what I found. That worked for me. If I just don't ever have one, I don't have to worry about if one leads to however many it leads to.
And we were chatting earlier too about, cause you probably get asked a lot more than me, but we both get asked a lot about obviously health and wellness and fitness and hacks and longevity and optimism, however you want to define it or describe it. I mean, that is, if you want to have just out of the gate, the single biggest performance enhancement or hack or longevity tool, clarity, whatever you want to call it. And I've done a lot of hacks, as the world knows. There is none bigger than that one.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah. And we were talking about earlier and I mentioned this and you were like, no, save that for the podcast. But I generally think that we tend to focus too much on doing the next new addition, when really, if you just stop doing the things that are hurting you most, that is going to lead you to move the ball downfield the most. So if a person was drinking, a glass of wine a night or two a week,
right,
they're probably fine.
Right. That wasn't us.
Yeah, that wasn't us. So for us, it's like you remove that thing and it's just like you just push the ball forward. Yeah. But I will say that, for us, it was that. For other people, it might be just a really shitty sleep habit or something. It might be a terrible diet. It might be some other compulsive behavior that
or relationships.
Yeah, relationships.
I think we spend some of us spend a lot of time with really toxic. I mean, we're talking about toxicity here. You can also spend time with toxic people.
Totally.
And you might find yourself in a toxic marriage, a toxic workplace. It's those are drains, as I like to call them.
Totally. Yeah. What did you find was, once you decided you were done, did you find it hard? What was that like?
And that's why I found it interesting. And maybe that's one of the things where you're not that you would ever, I never feared like, if I just stop drinking, I'm going to have a headache for a week, or I had none of that.
Yeah.
And I'm not flexing. I'm not bragging. The hardest part for me was just saying, just this internal conversation of like, dude, this is risky, right? It was, and it gets way, way deeper but I view my life as certainly been complicated and could have gone really far south. But for whatever reason, and whether it's my own will or drive, or whether it's just some other force out there that just gave me another shot. And so I knew I was getting this shot. And then the boost of that shot was even more. And I'm like, and there was only one person. Let me boil it down. There was only one person that could have ruined it, right? It wasn't an external factor. It wasn't a person. It wasn't an article. There's only one person that could have ruined this. And that's me.
Yeah.
And so I looked at that and I thought, okay, if I'm the most dangerous, or if I'm the one who can, because, the story was ruined in the first place by me. Mm-hmm. But miraculously, and thank God the world gave me this opportunity, there's only one person who can ruin that, and that's me.
Yeah.
And I just thought, this is sloppy, and this has risk associated, and it has all of the things you don't want. It has embarrassment, it has shame. Now with it has come all of the fun things, right? Clarity and fitness and focus and improved relationships and better sleep, all the things that
Right.
But I didn't want that risk to be the thing that ruined this opportunity,
derailed it.
This chance that the world gave me. I take it very seriously, and I was like, I'm out on this, man. This is not.
Yeah.
How big of a fool, right? You're this guy. Okay, you're in timeout. You're canceled. Maybe we'll give you another shot. And then you ruin it, fuck it up again. Mm-hmm. I'd be the biggest fucking idiot of all time. And I said, I don't want to be that idiot. Mm-hmm. And so, it's awesome. But I will say that I want to go back to the sober thing just for a second, because I'm with you. Like, I'm just like, look, man, I don't know, dude. I just stopped. I felt like I was about to embarrass myself, and it wasn't very hard to answer your other question. I may not have been the most pleasant person to be around for a while. Yeah. It's certainly been a journey. It's been 13 months, but I've never looked back.
Yeah.
Never. I've never been in a situation like, oh man, I got to get out of here. I don't, for whatever reason, I guess I'm blessed. I just don't have that. So it wasn't, but I also have, it's been interesting back to the sober thing. Like, how do I view myself, or and I'm with you, like 10 times out of 10, somebody wants to talk. I've done this, right? I have old friends or old competitors that have been through this. Like, I will be there for them until the end of time. Mm-hmm. Right. But the sober thing, I'm like, but the fun part about it is, as we all do on Instagram, do that death scroll. I was like, look at this one right here. This is John Mayer talking about being sober, or whoever, all these people. I'm like, fuck it, I'll watch this. And then I'm like, I just go like, and I keep watching these people talking about their sobriety. Mm-hmm. And there's no part of me that wants to stop watching that. Mm. I'm like, this is fucking dope. I'm going to watch. And so now I keep getting fed these sober things, but I will watch them all. I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm watching this. Yeah, I love this. Yeah, keep going, scroll. Yeah,
I think too.
But I also watch it, and I'm like, I don't ever want to be the person in that video.
You don't want to do that.
I mean, I would, but I don't know. But I get, and I think this is the most important thing. I'm inspired by that. By watching that, that makes me feel good.
Yeah, you don't feel like you're alone in it. You're like,
no, I'm like, yeah,
this person's doing it. That person's doing it. Yeah, I can do this.
And we were joking earlier, like, I lost my, what is it? Like you, it's not like you lost your privileges. Like you lost, I just lost my license. Yeah. And that was then, this is now. And let's move on.
Yeah. I think too, I think when you have that moment of insight where you feel like I could do this now, you got to take it. Because if you don't listen to that and then you go, and you do it again, I don't know if you get that second moment. I don't know, because I've never had it. Right. I had all these fits and starts, and then finally was like something shifted.
You have these little mini initiatives. Dry January. I'm going to do a reset. Mm-hmm. I'm going to only drink on the weekends. Or this is all. If you're having that conversation,
yes,
I can tell you what the best answer is.
Yeah, that's
the best answer is just no.
Yeah.
And I, it's funny. I my rationale, and we are going down the sober rabbit hole here, but I love this. My rationale, when I first told my wife, I said, I I think I should eliminate this from my life. She's like, wow. I mean, we partied and we entertained and we partied together and had friends. She's like, whoa, that's serious. And my rationale was, and I was just trying to find an angle on this. And I said, that's what I came up with. I said, I can't imagine that anybody that ever decided to stop drinking got a year down the road, 5 years down the road, 20 years down the road. Not one person in the history of the world looked back on that time and said, I regret doing that.
Yeah.
Not one person. So in the history of the world, if not one person has said that over all of those periods of time, that's my answer.
Yeah. And I mean, I've definitely heard of people who maybe they quit for 5 years and they go, oh, I think I can handle it now.
I did it.
And
yeah. I can do it again anytime.
Then they go back into it and they go, nope, I was wrong. And then they're back, you know, it's like they test the waters and they realize, oh, that snake still bites. So,
yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Oh God.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to get out of here. You're going to get out of here. Look at this. We've gone long. This is for ADD land, 66 minutes. That's pretty good. I do want you to watch the Brian Johnson documentary on Netflix. We can talk about
I will.
I was hesitant. There's a big Mormon component as well.
Oh, is he Mormon?
And you got to watch the documentary.
He was.
Okay.
I'll watch the documentary.
But what we were saying, and I was reluctant to watch, and you're going to answer these for yourself, but it's a bit extreme. But if there's going to be stuff that we can take from people like that, right?
That's my thought. Yeah.
By the way, let's just borrow the brand name 2%. But there's 2% of what this guy does that we now know works. Well, fucking A. Yeah. God bless Brian Johnson.
Yeah, the world always needs its people who are quirky, who are totally out on the edges and the extremes. Mm-hmm. And we might find that, to your point, 98% of what they're doing doesn't matter. But if they kind of show us the light to a couple things, it's like, good. The world needs those people.
Right.
You know, and people, and part of that is that there's always going to be pushback on those people. There's going to be people who try and tear them down, who whatever. Yeah. But to me, it's just part of this kind of long cycle that's always, and when he first came out, I'm like, oh my God, this seems miserable. This guy's life, holy hell. And then I'm like, you know what? The world needs this guy.
You got to watch it.
The world needs this guy. The world needs this guy.
No, we will cheer him on. I don't want to, and you will not want to live that life.
No. I mean, I'm one of those people where I'm very much like, what is the highest impact stuff I can do? I'm going to do that. And I'm not going to worry about the other stuff. Yeah. I want most of my attentional resources going to my sort of main goal, which is writing. Mm-hmm. You know, I can't spend whatever it is, 30 minutes taking a cold plunge. Like I got to be writing.
Right. And $2 million a year, allegedly. But it's a lot of time. You watch it and then text me back. Reconnect. Before you go, the title, do you have a title for this third book other than fucking 80 Days of Hell?
Maybe that's what we'll go with.
80. No. This kid from Plano titled my third book.
Fucking 80 Days of Hell is the new book.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
No, you don't have a title. No, we don't have a title yet. I don't know. I was like pimping out the book.
I like it.
Thanks for doing this.
Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, we'll keep doing it. I feel like we have
more layers to uncover.
Yeah. That sober thing is wild, man. Heavy.
It's an adventure.
Yeah.
Life is an adventure.
Yeah.
Just go into the dark forest.
Yeah.
That's like, I just think people should do things that scare them, that like open up a new door.
Yeah.
It's just, as far as we know, you only live once. It's like, fuck it. Let's make this. Let's try and have all the experiences.
I'm working off the assumption and living the life with my life with the assumption that we only live once.
Right. Totally.
That'd be dope if we all of a sudden go, wow, I was wrong. Yeah. Get another crack at this.
We'll find out.
Okay. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.